This is Tyler with the Terradise Nature Center, and you're watching Field Journal Friday. Okay, let's see here. Hey y'all. You know, I was just looking for this spot on... Oh, there it is. Huh. You know, I don't think I would have ever found this spot if not for this map. In fact, you know, the first time I drove to the Nature Center here, I used a map. Huh. Well, actually, when I got here, I was kind of curious about where this river flows. So I used a map to figure it out. Well, and then after that, I was curious about some Shawnee tribe trails that may have gone through the area, and well, I guess I used a map for that as well. Well, and by that time it was dark, and you know what? I used a map to figure out which constellations I was seeing in the sky. That's incredible. You know, scientists, they use maps all the time, and so do you. Think about the last time you used a map. A model of the human digestive system, all of those intestines. Well, that's a map. Have you watched the weather report on the news lately? That's a map. How about a really cool model of all of the planets in our solar system? That's a map. Ever kick on the GPS to find the nearest McDonald's? That's a map. You know, it might seem weird for how often we use them, but maps are considered a scientific tool. But if we think about it, what is a map? Well, we might just say that a map is a representation or an illustration, a drawing, a model of a certain area at a certain point in time. And now it's pretty obvious that when we look at a map, it's of an area, a location, a place. Whether that be some sort of system in our body, maybe the layout or the blueprints of your own house, or something as expansive and vast as a model of our solar system. But remember, maps are a representation of a place and a time. Let's think about that. This path I am on right now here at the Nature Center, do you think it looked exactly like this about 100 years ago? Well, let me ask you this. If you take this same path 100 years from now, is it going to look the same? No, it's not. Because places change over time. We know that. Often, when a place changes, we come back to old maps and we correct them or we update them. People have been making maps for a long, long time. In fact, a lot of what we know about the ancient world and the people in history comes from maps that scientists have found and that historians have studied. Now, maps can be super precise, but some maps are more artistic in their vision. But when we take that art and that science and we put them together in the sense of map making, we can use one word to describe it: cartography. Good cartographers know that maps consist of 4 really important pieces, other than the map itself, of course. A title. And a great title tells me when and where this map takes place. We need to know the cardinal directions. This is going to be your compass on the map. It's going to allow people to recognize which direction they are traveling. Do you know the cardinal directions? Ah, of course. North, south, east, and west. A key. In every map you've probably ever seen, there's a little box in one of the corners. And that box has these little drawings or little symbols that represent different landmarks that you might find in the map itself. These little symbols that you're seeing in the key that represent landmarks, they may look different from map to map or cartographer to cartographer, but they're still there representing something on the map. Now, scale is going to help us discern the distance or the size of certain objects or space between those objects on a map, and that's going to help people read and understand your map. You may think back to maps you've seen before, and there's been a little bar in the corner that says, this amount of distance on the map is equal to 2,000 feet or 1 mile. Now, obviously, those are larger scale maps, but we could scale it down, and perhaps we'll scale it down for our activity. But before that, there's one idea I want us to think about. As important as the landmarks are on a map, perhaps more important is the way we represent the distance between those landmarks. Because really what maps are helping you do is realize the location of those landmarks in relation to one another. So we have to take into account all of that space in between. Let's say you are making a bird's eye view map, a map of you above me looking right down at where I'm standing right now. You would put me in relation to some of the objects that I am standing around. In your map, you would put me closer to this tree than you would, say, any of the trees back there behind us. Today, I want you to be great artists. I want you to be fantastic scientists. I want you to be superb map makers, and I want you to be incredible cartographers, because we are going to make our very own maps. Now, the way I want you to do this is I want you to find your favorite green space, whether that be a park or a trail or even your very own backyard, as long as it's a space that you enjoy and that you feel safe at. Now, take an adult with you and go on a hike. Pick your favorite trail in that area, or if there's no trail available, you can hike the perimeter of that green space. Remember, the perimeter is the outer edge of any area. And as long as you're being safe and making great decisions, you should be okay. Now, while you are participating on your map-making expedition, I want you to identify 6 things. You're also going to take this field journal entry with you on your hike. On this field journal worksheet, on the left-hand side, there's going to be boxes, numbered 1 through 6. And what I want you to do is I want you to make a map key using those boxes. These 6 objects could be trees, they could be stones, they could be shrubs that you really find yourself connecting with on trail. Maybe they're a funny shape, maybe they've got really neat flowers on them you've never seen before. They might be actions. Let's say you find the wind blowing really hard in one area. You can represent that in one of the boxes. Or if you find a squirrel that's feeding on a pine cone, well, you could put that in one of the boxes as well. Now, whatever you're sketching in these 6 boxes, these are going to be the landmarks for your map. The map, of course, is going to go in that big box to the right of the key. Now, inside of that box, you are going to see a compass. There are quite a few ways to figure out your cardinal directions. But I think the easiest way, and the way we're going to use right now, is just to figure out, where is the sun in relation to me? You know, every single day, the sun rises in the east and it sets in the west. That's a guarantee. If you're out in the morning, know that the sun came up in the east. Go ahead and face that direction. Don't look at the sun directly. Put your arms out to either side, and you then know that your left hand is facing north and your right hand is facing south, which leaves one direction, the opposite of east. That's gonna be west. If you're out in the evening, go ahead and face the other direction. Put your arms out. You know that you are facing west. That's the direction the sun's setting in. Well, that means that east is directly behind you, the opposite of west. And your left hand is gonna be facing south. Your right hand is gonna be facing north. Next we have the scale. Now the scale is found at the bottom of this worksheet, underneath the portion where you're gonna draw the entire map. Now the scale has a bar next to it, and that bar measures approximately 1 inch on your field journal page. Now that 1 inch on your field journal page, when you are drawing your map, that 1 inch is going to represent so much distance in reality, in real life, in you being on the trail. So for instance, if your scale is 25 steps to 1 inch, each 25 steps you take on trail, you want to sketch the length of 1 inch on your map. Now once you have finished your trail and you have mapped to scale the route that you took around your trail, I want you to try to think back to your journey, to your cartography expedition, and I want you to add those landmarks that you've drawn to your map approximately where you found them on trail. Now, we don't want to add our landmarks and our key to our map until the route is finished, because sometimes with drawings, we get really carried away and we don't realize how big or how small we're drawing things. And so having the route finished in our map space will help us determine how big our landmarks should be when we move them over to the approximate places they were on our route. All right, now that that's all out of the way, I'm gonna go make my map right now. Let's go. Hey everybody, we are out at the head of our trail at the Terradise Nature Center, and before we get started, I wanted to make sure that I completed all of the criteria for a great map, or at least what I could do up to this point. As you can see on our field journal worksheet, I've got a title, the Terradise Nature Center, Northern Trail, and it's May the 15th, 2020. Where you are and when you are is really important for a great map. I've also got 25 steps to 1 inch for the scale. So every 25 steps I'm out on the trail, I'm gonna be counting. When I get to 25 steps, I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna draw 1 inch, trying to follow the contour, the turns and twists of the trail within that 1 inch. Here's a handy tip. Your hands, great tools, and you always have them with you. And it just so happens that sometimes a knuckle on your finger or 2 knuckles on your finger equal up to 1 inch. So I know that my second knuckle on my pointer finger is equal to 1 inch, and I can use that to help me with scaling when I'm drawing the map. The next thing I did was I completed our compass. Now I know that the sun rises in this direction, which means that direction is east. The sun always rises in the east. That makes the opposite direction west, and that makes my left hand point to north and my right hand point to south. So we've got our compass finished, we've got our title, we've got our scale. We just need to add landmarks on our key, map out our trail, transfer those landmarks onto the trail map itself, and we'll be all finished. All right, hey, in our first 25 steps on our map making journey, we have come across this amazing piece right here. Check it out. I'm sure a lot of us at home can identify this skull without knowing much about it, just by these structures on the top, these antlers. And the only animals to have antlers like this are members of the deer family, or cervids. All right, very cool. I'm definitely gonna add this as our first landmark. All right, here we go. All right, I've stopped here because I found my second landmark. This is an amazing elm tree. I know that by the bark, and if this tree had leaves on it right now, I would show you the leaves because they're really telltale of an elm. They are asymmetrical, which means that one side doesn't really fit with the other, like we think about with most leaves on either side of the stem. Really amazing. All right, I'm gonna draw the shape of the leaf as my second landmark, and remember where this tree is. All right, things are looking, oh. Ladies and gentlemen, look at this. We've got ourselves a little brown snake on trail. How incredible. Now don't worry, this snake is non-venomous, and I'm actually being very careful to make sure that I don't hurt it rather than it hurting me. You know, there's a difference between, oh, calm down, buddy. There's a difference between poison and venom. When something bites you and you get sick, well, that's gonna be a venom, like a snake or a spider or something like that. But if you bite into something and you get sick, that's a poison. All right. Whew, I'm gonna put our little buddy down here so he can get on his way and do all the snake things today, but I'm gonna add him as our third landmark. Woo. Oh my goodness, you can't see, but just, oh, there it goes. Just over there, there was a gray catbird. And now gray catbirds have this amazing call that they do, and it sounds kind of like, Mah! And they do it all the time. But because I want to recognize that call and that fantastic catbird over there, I think we're gonna make it our fourth landmark. Hey, all right. Do you see this big pile of sticks and debris back here behind me? Well, really, those are super helpful for forest and forest creatures. Things like rabbits and snakes and cardinals, upland birds like bobwhite. They love, love, love brush piles like this. Not only do they offer shelter, but they offer maybe a food source. You might find some insects in there, you might find some rodents in there, and that's gonna be a food source for a lot of the animals that we have in the wilderness. That brown snake that we found before, if he's in trouble, if a predator is after him, he's gonna go to a brush pile if it's around to try and protect himself. I wanna know if this brush pile stays here forever. So I'm gonna draw it as a landmark. Here we go. All right, now We are almost, if you can see here, we are almost back to our starting point, which means our trail's almost done. So I definitely want to find our last landmark, and I think I found it. You can see there's some really big pine trees next to us here, which means on the ground somewhere, we should be able to find, oh, incredible, a pine cone. A pine cone. Now the amazing thing about pine cones is underneath these scales, now these are opened up, so it's not going to be on this. Underneath these scales are little pine tree seeds. Isn't that amazing? All right, let's finish out our trail. Amazing, and just like that, we have come back around to the beginning of our trail. Now all I've got to do is add each of these landmarks to approximately the space on the trail where I found them, and my map will be complete. I'm all finished with my map. I've got our deer skull, our elm tree, our brown snake, our catbird, our brush pile, and the pine cone we looked at today, all on my trail. I hope you have a blast mapping out your own trail. And remember, nobody knows your backyard better than you. And now you know yours a little better. See you guys.